Hello, everyone. I'm Greg Weaver. Welcome to the Audio Analyst. Pardon me. So, while it is true that my absolute passion for this industry and hobby is best fulfilled and expressed exploring hyper audio gear, the realm of gear where we are permitted to experience the highest levels of reproduced sound available today, I'm still a sucker for vintage gear. Why? I'm not really sure, but if I had to guess, I suspect that it's both the power of the nostalgia for some bygone sonic achievement that wowed me way back when, combined with a bit of the thrill of the hunt thrown in for good measure. Regardless, there are many excellent reasons to build a system, completely or in part, from vintage products. Whether you are trying to re-experience a sound that a music-loving family member turned you on to as a child or a young adult, or a system that just spoke to you, maybe while you were at university or in the military. Perhaps there's a special component in your past, one that maybe you just couldn't afford at the time. Or maybe you just want to maximize your purchasing power while staying within a budget. Regardless, selecting, searching out, and owning vintage audio gear can be highly rewarding. And guess what? There has never been a better time to be on the lookout for vintage products. A little perspective on the history of this industry will uncover that the 1970s exploded as the original boom decade for the stereo industry. In fact, that era is recognized as the real beginning of what would soon become the high-end audio industry as we know it today. So, if you are looking for gear from that era, you are in luck. That 1970s stereo buying boom was fueled by purchases made by virtually every 18 to 24-year-old male of that era. People just like me, especially at times when they headed off to college, when returning from military service, or when they were setting up their first bachelor pad. I graduated high school in 1973, and like nearly all the other baby boomers, people who were born between 1946 and 1964, my stereo was both my second most prized possession, right behind my car, a 1967 British Racing Green Triumph TR4A, and a source of as much pride and bragging rights as it was of musical and emotional fulfillment. Now, by the early 1980s, home hi-fi sales had saturated, with something like a 32% penetration level of an estimated 80 million American homes. Now think about that. Nearly 26 million homes, all with hi-fi equipment, much of it built and purchased in the 1970s. Now, at that time, in the early 80s, we also noted a strong decline in sales of hi-fi or stereo gear. A downturn driven by several factors, ranging from an already oversaturated market to an economic downturn that had begun to impact the purchase of all manner of luxury goods, not just stereo or hi-fi gear. Now, factor in that there had been virtually zero built-in obsolescence with 1970 stereo gear, as most of that gear had been built to last and was easily repaired when something did go wrong. Now, sadly, that 80s market downturn also marked a serious reduction in the average build quality for standard hi-fi products, what we would now call mid-fi. Now, many of those 1970s stereo owners are reaching an age when they have started, or at least have started planning, to downsize their homes. While some boomers may elect to age in place and stay in their current homes, many others will find their current homes to be too much to manage and will downsize in some manner or other, maybe moving into smaller homes, retirement communities, assisted living facilities, or moving in with other family members to ride out old age more conveniently. This is great news for anyone looking for vintage gear, because with these folks beginning to addressing downsizing, that means they will be clearing out basements, attics, or garages full of many of those long held onto and prized possessions. Items like that college or first bachelor pad stereo that they've just never been able to part with. Keeping an eye on local garage and yard sales, estate sales or auctions, and watching listings like Craigslist and Facebook Marketplace will be your best bet to unearth all manner of legacy equipment. Now, those of you looking for more recent vintage gear, have no fear. You too are in good shape. For any number of reasons that I don't pretend to understand completely, many of today's audiophiles are what I call churners. Listeners who may go through a dozen or more sets of speakers, integrated stereo or mono amplifiers, or turntables, optical disc players, even DACs in short order while searching for the perfect synergy with the rest of their system. This can create a glut of often highly desirable, well-received, and excellent performing products on the used market, all at a fraction of what they would cost you new. If you're shopping for this kind of gear, besides the options I've already listed, sources like AudioGone or eBay may be gold mines. Now, just to be clear, anyone who suggests that any older vintage gear is better than or even the equal of the state-of-the-art gear being offered today is only fooling themselves and trying to fool you too. Don't fall for it. Now, to be clear, depending on the class of product you are looking for, some vintage gear has the potential to offer better performance than some newer gear. For instance, if you're comparing some older vintage dedicated 2-channel receivers or amplifiers to some of today's newer AV receivers or amplifiers, you just may find that some of this legacy electronics may offer much better current capability and more power. Newer AV receivers may scrimp on the quality of the power section in an effort to afford you more features and options like 5 or even 7 channels of amplification, multiple surround sound processing options, or numerous and unnecessary for 2-channel audio connectivity options, none of which typically would advance sound quality. So if you are just looking for the best sound you can get from a 2-channel stereo, such AV receivers really shouldn't even be on your list. Now, then too, searching out and buying more recent vintage flagship products may allow you to exceed the performance of current production models in that same product category that are selling for about the same dough. But that is not always a given, so take care here. The advances made, especially over this past decade, have allowed many more affordable products being offered today to eclipse performance levels of gear that may have established the benchmark for their categories 15 or even 10 years ago. It's been amazing. And this is especially true of products like loudspeakers, turntables, and digital electronics. So keep a healthy perspective here. But as I have suggested, if you have a specific vintage sound in mind, or if you are careful and thoughtful in your searching, it is both an affordable way to get into some great gear and can be a tremendously rewarding experience, guys. As a case in point, this past February, I found and bought a pair of Von Schweikert Audio VR1 speakers in light maple on eBay. The VR1s were introduced at CES 2003 and represented an entirely new direction for Von Schweikert Audio. First, the VR1 monitor at 8 inches wide, 12 inches tall, 10.5 inches deep, and weighing 17 pounds each, had a retail of just $995, making it the most affordable speaker that Von Schweikert Audio has ever offered. The VR1 used a built-to-order 6.5-inch midwoofer and 1-inch semi-rigid dome tweeter. The cabinet was a handsome, beveled edge, robust MDF cabinet available in 4 genuine wood veneers: black ash, beautiful dark red cherry, it's gorgeous, light maple, or an African hazelwood, and featured a 1-inch thick baffle with compound internal cross bracing. Now, the custom drivers were mounted using military-grade damping gaskets, and the internal damping schema was VSA's own proprietary gradient density process. Each cabinet had a single set of silver rhodium 5-way binding posts to accept spades, bananas, or stripped wires. But another really big part of what gave these exceptional monitors their big and solid voice was their dividing network, the now famous von Schweikert Global Access Integration Network. This was Albert's uniquely effective synthesized fourth-order acoustic filter, employing a unique network of stacked first-order filters and Zobel conjugate shunts, facilitating phase alignment, flat frequency response, and that von Schweikert celebrated signature staging, imaging, and linear off-axis response. I have to say that the VR1 introduction made quite a splash, and it received a number of remarkable reviews. Though every aspect of the VR1 was developed, designed, and spec'd by Albert von Schweikert in California, to achieve its accentuated level of performance at such a reasonable price point, all its components were sourced, manufactured, and assembled in the Pacific Rim. Now, while this practice was not exactly common at this time, it had been successfully explored and exploited very beneficially by some other designers, most notably by Andrew Jones, who's appeared here on the channel many times, when he joined Pioneer in 1997. Now, one of the other factors that really helped VSA with this production decision was the use of an on-site, US-directed and monitored quality control team. So why am I telling you all this about a nearly 20-year-old speaker? Well, from the time I first heard them, I found them to be a sonic marvel at their price, and I really wanted a pair. But, you know, I didn't really need a pair or have a place to set them up. And in time, even though I couldn't justify getting a pair when they had come out, I had regretted passing on them for the past 18 years. When I saw this pair in such immaculate condition, even though the light maple was not my first choice of finish, I just had to snag them. Now, my pair, bearing serial numbers L799 and R800, fairly early models, arrived on March 1st, and as I unpacked them, my excitement at hearing them again was rapidly deflated as I was treated to the sound of something rattling around inside each cabinet. Clearly, something large had come loose during shipping and was free to move around, but it didn't sound large enough to be one of the driver's magnets. So, based on what I was hearing and my years of experience working on different speakers, I suspected that it had been an inductor that had broken loose from the crossover board. Once I opened the first cabinet, that verified my suspicion. I pulled the woofer to access the enclosure and found that an inductor, a 1 millihenry coil, had broken free. It appeared that the cable ties holding it in place had broken loose under the stresses of shipping, allowing it to rip loose from the PC board, and both were permanently damaged. Now, after I explained what had happened to the seller and shared with them that VSA had informed me that such a repair wouldn't cost more than $75, including shipping both ways, because they had insured the shipment, they sent me a refund for the maximum cost of that repair. Now, this brought the total price that I paid for these speakers to under $480. Now, I quickly pulled both damaged crossover boards and shipped them out to VSA for repair. Once they arrived there, the real fun started. VSA's vice president and chief designer, Leif Swanson, suggested that he could make a significant upgrade to the crossovers for about $300. Now, since I'm all about upgrades, and as it just made more sense to do it while they were already there rather than ship them back later to do it, within a few weeks, I had the rebuilt, upgraded crossovers back in Goshen. Now, the photos I'm showing of both original damaged crossovers and the severely modified rebuilt units that were returned to me pretty much tell the whole story. The upgrades featured all point-to-point wiring with master-built signature hookup wire, as both the quality and size of some of the newer components necessitated that Leif abandon the PCB that the crossovers had originally been built on. He installed Clarity Cap bypass capacitors, upgraded from the original Sandcast power resistors to all Mundorf Resistors, and picked the Erse perfect lay inductors. Now, Leif also included some of his preferred silver solder to use, since I had told them that I would abandon the typical push-on connectors in favor of soldering the wires directly to the driver's input tabs. They also included several strings of this black tack, a gummy material packaged like gray window caulking, to use as an upgraded seal between the drivers and the baffle. Now, they won't disclose much about this material, but they suggest that it isolates the drivers from the cabinets in an especially effective manner. Now, after about 2 hours of reassembling these speakers, they went into my big rig, replacing my $225,000 reference speakers, the Von Schweikert Audio Ultra 9s. Here's a brief listen.
1, 2, 1, 2.
Look, I cannot believe these things are 18 years old and still sound this damn good. While I could have simply gone with the stock crossover parts for the repair, I am so glad that I opted for the better quality parts. Until you hear these guys, you simply cannot believe the resolving power these little things exhibit, clearly enhanced over the stock VR1s by the newly rebuilt crossovers, no doubt. But their tonality and transparency are insane, especially when you consider what they originally sold for. After many hours of listening now, save their understandably rapid roll-off below about 45 Hz. They are stand-mounted monitors after all. There is very little to complain about from a loudspeaker with a cubic displacement of just over 1,000 cubic inches, or less than 6/10 of 1 cubic foot. I have a 4,000 plus cubic foot room and they still work. It's still amazing to me what they are capable of. And keep in mind, I live with a world-class loudspeaker that sells for 225 times as much as these speakers did. What a freaking value. All of which kind of enforces my point on the inherent value of using legacy gear. Guys, I absolutely love my new 18-year-old speakers. It is my sincerest hope that at some point, VSA may choose to reissue an updated version of this speaker using every measure at their disposal to take advantage of all that they have learned and the materials advances, yet still keep it cost effective, and introduce the world to the Albert von Schweikert Memorial VR1 Plus. Who knows? If you are enjoying the content and information presented here and would like to see more content like it, please click that subscribe button and don't forget to like and share links to your favorite episodes with your friends or on social media. I love hearing from you, so be sure to post comments and questions. And information on supporting the channel may be found in today's description section or at my website, theaudioanalyst.com. Thanks again for finding the time to drop by and visit today. I hope all my viewers in the U.S. are set to enjoy our nation's 245th birthday celebration today. Happy 4th of July. Please stay safe and keep the music playing. Till next time, cheers.